My future sister-in-law demanded I return my $3,000 dream wedding dress so she wouldn't have to pay $200. Then I found out my fiancé has been secretly sending her money for a year. I, 27 female, and my fiancé, Rose, 28 female, are getting married in the spring of 2027. She is genuinely the love of my life, my best friend, and the person I want to grow old with. I've never doubted that she's the one, and planning this wedding has been something I've been excited about for years. About a week ago, we finally found our dream venue. It has a gorgeous outdoor ceremony space and a beautiful indoor reception area. On top of that, the venue offers an option to rent an entire bed and breakfast house for the wedding party. It's honestly stunning and would make the whole weekend feel intimate, cozy, and special. The catch is that it costs an extra $1,096 per night to rent the house. Rose and I fell in love with the place immediately. We talked it through, ran the numbers, and decided to move forward. We put down a $2,550 deposit to secure our date. It was a big step, but it felt right. Because the bed and breakfast was a little out of our budget to fully cover on our own, we decided to ask our bridesmaids if they wanted to stay there and, if so, whether they would be willing to chip in. We were very clear and upfront. If they chose to stay, it would be $100 for one night or $200 for 2 nights. If they couldn't afford it or didn't want to stay, that was completely fine. There was zero pressure. We told them they could stay elsewhere, and we'd still make sure they were included for the rehearsal dinner and wedding prep time. We have 6 bridesmaids total, 3 for me and 3 for Rose. Every single bridesmaid who chose to stay said they were happy to chip in and agreed that the cost was fair. My parents are also staying there and are contributing $200 as well. At that point, everything felt settled and stress-free. Fast forward to yesterday. I went dress shopping and found my dream wedding dress. It was emotional in the best way. The dress cost $3,000 and the veil was another $400. The dress is completely covered in glitter, with rhinestones along the sweetheart neckline of the bodice, and the veil has small rhinestones scattered throughout. I felt absolutely stunning in it. This is the dress I've been envisioning since I was 5 years old. I've been saving for it for nearly 10 years, knowing exactly what I wanted. Buying it felt like a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and I was over the moon. This morning, though, the mood shifted. Rose's sister and one of her bridesmaids, Jenna, 24 female, texted Rose and said she couldn't afford to stay at the bed and breakfast after all. Jenna is currently a college student, so I understand that money can be tight. I've been there myself, and I know how stressful finances can be when you're in school. What complicates things is that Rose is already covering Jenna's bridesmaid dress entirely. On top of that, Rose is also paying for Jenna's meal at the bridal party gathering we're hosting so all the bridesmaids can meet and bond before the wedding. We've already made several accommodations for her because we want her to feel included and supported. When Rose told me about Jenna's text, I suggested that Rose gently remind her that staying at the bed and breakfast is completely optional. If Jenna can't afford it, she doesn't have to stay there. That was always the agreement, and no one would be upset or think less of her for it. Rose hesitated and said, "I know, but my sister lives about 3 hours away. She'll need a place to stay." That's where I started to feel conflicted. On one hand, I understand that Jenna needs somewhere to sleep, and I don't want to make things difficult for her. On the other hand, we were clear from the beginning that staying at the bed and breakfast was a choice, not a requirement. There are other hotels in the area, including cheaper options, and she could also potentially stay with another bridesmaid if they're comfortable with that. We're already financially stretching ourselves for this wedding, and it feels unfair to quietly absorb yet another cost without discussion. I told Rose calmly at first, I understand that she needs somewhere to stay. What if Jenna stays at a cheaper hotel nearby? I found one for $86 a night. To me, that felt like a fair compromise. Jenna would still have a place to stay, no one would be excluded, and it wouldn't blow our budget. Rose didn't answer me. Instead, she immediately texted Jenna and offered to pay for her stay at the bed and breakfast. That's when my stomach dropped. I told Rose, "Honey, we can't afford that. That's over our budget. You're already buying her bridesmaid dress and paying for her dinner at the bridal party. We genuinely can't afford to cover her stay too, especially since I just bought my wedding dress for $3,000. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I wasn't attacking Jenna. I was stating a financial reality. We have a wedding to pay for, and every extra expense adds up fast. Rose's response is something I still can't fully wrap my head around. She said, Spending that much on a dress is ridiculous. If you return it and buy a cheaper dress from Amazon, we can afford to let Jenna stay at the bed and breakfast. I was stunned. I literally sat there frozen for a solid 2 minutes, just staring at her, trying to process what she had said. This wasn't just about money anymore. It felt deeply personal. When I finally spoke, I said, "I've been saving for this dress for 10 years. I will not be returning it, especially not for a bridesmaid who, 1, isn't even in my bridal party, and 2, isn't paying for her own dress or her own meal. If Jenna is saving $200 on her dress and $40 on her meal because you're paying for it, then she can save $200 for 2 nights at the bed and breakfast. That's more than a year away. She has time to save." I wasn't yelling. I wasn't name-calling. I was hurt and honestly heartbroken. This dress is something I've dreamed about since I was a little girl. It's not just fabric and glitter. It's a symbol of years of saving, planning, and imagining this moment. For Rose to dismiss it as ridiculous and suggest I replace it with a cheap Amazon dress so her sister could be more comfortable felt like a slap in the face. Rose got angry, shut down the conversation, and walked away. Now I'm sitting here feeling like an absolute mess. On one hand, I feel guilty. I don't want to be the person who makes someone feel excluded or unsupported, especially someone who is family to my future wife. On the other hand, I feel like my boundaries and my sacrifices are being completely ignored. It costs money to be in a wedding. That's just the reality of it. Rose and I are already spending a significant amount on Jenna, far more than on any other bridesmaid. We are buying her dress, paying for her meal, and now she expects us to cover her accommodations too. At this point, we're talking about cutting back on our own wedding expenses just to continue financially supporting her, and that doesn't feel fair to me. Update. So a lot has happened since my last post, and honestly, I'm still emotionally exhausted from it all, but I wanted to give a full update because things finally came to a head. After everything that happened, I sat down with Rose and told her we needed to talk. Not argue, not avoid it, not shut down, but actually talk. To her credit, she agreed immediately. Rose admitted that she messed up. She told me she had already texted Jenna and told her that she would not be paying for the bed and breakfast stay and that if Jenna couldn't afford a hotel, she could stay at their grandmother's house instead. Rose apologized to me and said she was just trying to be a good big sister, but she acknowledged that she absolutely should have talked to me first before offering money that wasn't just hers, it was ours. She also told Jenna that she couldn't afford to cover her expenses anymore and that Jenna would need to pay her back for the bridesmaid dress. That's when everything blew up. Jenna did not take this well. She completely lost it. Rose had her on speakerphone and Jenna started screaming, "I'm a student. I can't afford to be a bridesmaid. This is ridiculous. If you can spend $34,000 on a wedding, you can afford my dress and paying for the bed and breakfast." At that point, Rose started crying. Being yelled at is extremely triggering for her, and Jenna knows this. Seeing Rose break down like that flipped a switch in me. I took the phone from her because I was done. I told Jenna, very clearly, that $34,000 is for our wedding. We saved it for us, not for you. If you knew you couldn't afford to be a bridesmaid, why did you even accept? It is not our responsibility to pay for your dress, your dinner, or your accommodations. And what about Rose's bachelorette party? Were you planning on leaving that cost to the maid of honor and the other bridesmaids too? Jenna didn't respond. She just hung up. A few minutes later, she texted Rose, "I don't like your fiancée. I think you should leave her." That was the moment everything changed. Rose absolutely lost it, in the best possible way. I watched her sit there, cheeks red, hands shaking, typing furiously. I've never seen her stand up for herself like that before, and honestly, I've never been more proud or more in love with her. After she sent the message, she showed it to me. This is exactly what she wrote. "Good thing you're not marrying her then. Thanks to my name, I've learned to stand up for myself. I'm not leaving her. I love her. She's been pointing out for a while how you only contact me when you need money, and it ends now. You chose to buy a house you can barely afford while being in school. If you can't afford to be a bridesmaid, then resign. Goodbye." I cried. Not sad tears, relief tears. Jenna hasn't responded since. This whole situation has been incredibly painful, but it's also been eye-opening. Rose finally sees the pattern I've been gently pointing out for a long time. Jenna only reaches out when she needs financial help, and she feels entitled to Rose's money just because they're sisters. The moment Rose set boundaries, Jenna went straight to insults, guilt, and manipulation, telling her to leave me, trying to turn us against each other and minimizing our wedding as if it's some frivolous expense she's entitled to benefit from. That told me everything I needed to know. Rose and I are stronger than ever after this. She apologized again for what she said about my dress and told me she didn't mean it. She was stressed, panicking, and trying to fix everything at once. She told me my dress is beautiful, that I deserve it, and that she can't wait to see me walk down the aisle in it. And yes, I forgave her. We're human, we make mistakes, but what matters is accountability and growth, and she showed both. As for Jenna, if she decides to step down as a bridesmaid, that's her choice. If she doesn't want to speak to us, that's also her choice. But the days of us sacrificing our joy, our boundaries, and our hard-earned money to keep her happy are officially over. I want to add a little more context and clear some things up because I feel like a few important details could easily be misunderstood without it. First, yes, Rose's response to her sister was a little aggressive. Even Rose admits that. But the bigger picture here is that she is still learning how to stand up for herself in a healthy way. For years, her default response has been people-pleasing, guilt, and giving in to keep the peace. This was one of the first times she actually held a firm boundary with Jenna, and while it wasn't perfectly worded, I'm proud of her for recognizing her mistake earlier in the situation and correcting it instead of doubling down. Growth isn't always pretty. Second, I want to address the whole "it's only $200" argument because that keeps coming up. Just because Rose and I could technically save $200 over a year does not mean we should pay it for Jenna. That money is not the point. The principle is. Jenna is an adult who accepted the role of bridesmaid, knowing that being in a wedding costs money. It is her responsibility to pay for her portion, just like every other bridesmaid. Jenna is also not being singled out. One of my own bridesmaids couldn't afford to stay at the bed and breakfast and handled it like an adult. She told me honestly, made alternate arrangements, and will still be with us for the rehearsal dinner and getting ready on the wedding day. No guilt trips. No entitlement. No tantrums. Funny how she didn't have an issue, but Jenna did. We are not forcing anyone to stay at the bed and breakfast. We aren't even covering the full cost ourselves. It simply isn't in our budget. That's why we were upfront from the beginning and asked the bridesmaids to chip in if they chose to stay. Staying there is optional. No one is being punished for opting out. On top of that, I found an even cheaper hotel nearby for $54 a night. Jenna still refused. At that point, it became very clear that this wasn't about affordability, it was about expectation. Which leads me to another major piece of information I only found out after all of this. Rose has been sending Jenna about $200 a month for the past year from our mutual funds, without my knowledge. I make more than Rose does, and that money was coming from shared savings. When I learned that, everything clicked. The entitlement, the outrage, the assumption that Rose would just handle it. That stopped immediately. I also want to be very clear about something else. When I originally spoke to Rose about the situation, all I suggested was that she talk to her sister about saving $200 over the next year if she wanted to stay at the bed and breakfast. That was it. I did not tell Rose to take back paying for the dress. I didn't demand anything. Rose taking back the dress payment wasn't about punishment, it was about boundaries. Jenna has been financially leaning on her for a long time, and once that dynamic was exposed, Rose finally saw how unhealthy it had become. At the end of the day, this isn't about a dress, a hotel room, or $200. It's about respect, accountability, and understanding that our wedding is about us, not about funding someone else's lifestyle. If Jenna can't afford to be a bridesmaid, that's okay, but that means stepping down, not demanding we shrink ourselves to accommodate her.